I'm Saule Nausedaite, and this is my Narrated Sketchbook video. This project explores equitable health through the design of a respectable future, and we're looking 10 years ahead. The brief is asked us to first work collaboratively to investigate how health systems might change across personal, population, public, and planetary scales. I was given the group within the public domain, focusing on civic communities. To begin my notes, I quickly wrote down just the start of the project and interesting bits that I thought were necessary within the project. And to begin the project as a group, we were first given the public health name. As a group, first decided what public health was and tried to find opportunities within our research. We first did our STPAC cards. We individually done STPAC cards and then brought them together to help find opportunities within our research. We began grouping them using strings and to help us find connections. The opportunities that we kind of arose to as a group was education, and we looked at AI in healthcare and what the consequences of that would be in 10 years, how cities are going to change, and media. And as a group, we tried to think about how we could teach and learn equitably, understand the importance of digital safety and how that's going to be really important in 10 years. We decided as a group that this underlying theme of all of the problems that we were researching kind of goes back to education and lack of education and the way people are educating themselves. We kind of wanted to focus on the dangers of the media and kind of went back and tried to think about how we receive information. The most problematic way that we receive information is media. I thought about how the media and misinformation affects health, and as a group we've decided that mass media and this problem that's going to be hugely exacerbated within the next 10 years, especially if it's left to run wild on its own. And then for our exhibition, we wanted to do something interactive. So we got out a snakes and ladders game, and then when we were kind of testing this out, we decided that it was too simple of a game to talk about such a huge complex problem, and then also the exhibition left it too much to chance, and we kind of ended up leaving out a lot of the issues that we wanted to talk about. And we also wanted to really hone in on what our installation explores. And we decided that the exhibition is a public health warning. So the exhibition itself is not trying to solve anything, it's just trying to really show people how media can be a dangerous thing if it's left unseen cards, and how the media produces inequalities. And so we decided on a web of strings. So after discussing with the group, we agreed to change the exhibition, and we wanted to make it interactive but also overwhelming. We wanted to really show the dangers of misinformation and how easy it is for it to snowball and become into a very dangerous thing. We were kind of treating information itself like an environmental substance, something that you can't see but can really poison the community. But even the information that we get doesn't just affect how we treat other people, it also affects how we treat the planet. And just being able to collectively agree on something is important to move forward as a society. And then to begin our individual part of the project, once we decided sort of the world that we were working in, we first started as a group doing Saule's system thinking workshops. We all put in different systems, infrastructures involved, kind of try to think about other aspects that are just past human, think about non-human aspects as well. So then after working as a group and trying to think of all these different entities, I kind of chose my scenario was thinking about how animals are presented in the government. And for my individual kind of design, I was thinking about maybe doing a little printer that would be used in Parliament to make sure that the animals' voices are included. And to do this, I imagined maybe chipping lots of wild animals and letting them run free, and then having distress signals go back to the Parliament to make sure that their voices are being heard. But then after the feedback that I got from the experts, I decided that it wasn't really the direction I wanted to go. I think it's a bit too unrealistic, a bit too far advanced, and secondly, it's also just a bit inhumane, taking animals and chipping them for gain of information. They can't really say if they're happy to do that, so it just seemed like an avenue that I really didn't want to go down. So then to begin our individual concept, we decided on a catalyst for our world, and so we decided that the government is controlling what media comes out to try and sort of break those echo chambers, to try and cut out the conflicted voices and have one true voice. This obviously is not a great thing within itself, but as a group we decided to maybe design things that would counteract this and to kind of give people back their free speech. So my first idea was information speakeasies. Initially what I was thinking is these spaces would be protected from the government eye. People could come in calmly, without surveillance, talk about issues and kind of talk back and forth. And I got this from the defined breakdowns, like people can't tell what's real, systems are relying on polluted data from AI, and we don't know who's who's coding this, who's controlling it, and if AI is controlling it, there's still that lack of trust, and people are anxious and they can't tell what information is real or not. And then at this point, I kind of got a bit stuck, and I didn't really know where to move further. So then, with my feedback from Mel, my tutorial, he kind of helped me narrow down what it was I was thinking. So what's important, who are the stakeholders, and make sure that I started to define sort of who it's for and what it is that I'm actually trying to design and what the outcomes are. So initially, to help me envision scale, I looked at some sort of public civic health designs that exist already, like air quality monitors and stuff like that. And then to kind of help me think about what I wanted to do, I summarised what our world was again and kind of thought about what it could be that I could design. So it would be, do I want to design the space, a device, a service? I thought for this sort of complex issue, it would have to be a service. And for this, I was maybe thinking about how we can change how the government works, maybe have a two-way civic system where the public have more of a voice in government decision-making. The concept that I started with is the fact that citizens no longer trust what they see. If we designed a community truth space where people could come in, experts could speak to them, and then they could send off to the government what they think is right. So the purpose of this essentially is I want to reduce anxiety and support mental well-being. I kind of want to create more of a community and bring people closer together instead of further apart, which is what the echo chambers in the media is starting to do. Then with my feedback from the experts, I kind of agreed with them the fact that I was kind of preaching to be converted. So the only people that would show up to these things are people that were already kind of want to know both sides of information, and decided I kind of needed to make my words more clear for myself, just to make it easier to design something for. So after that, I wanted to make a little mood board for what I thought the world was going to look like in 10 years and how it felt. And it's like this distrust, and it's scary, regaining knowledge, and like maybe am I designing maybe a rebellion for this system? Then I went back and started to refine what it was that I was trying to do. Back and I started to rethink this community truth space and what it is that I'm actually trying to do. So I also thought about the truth, the wording. So that was one of the feedbacks that I got from the experts. It's like, what is truth? Like, truth is not just one answer, because there's obviously more than one side, and change the wording a bit. It sounds a bit too authoritarian and a bit too absolute, and I wanted my concept to be about conversation, understanding, perspective sharing. And so I changed the wording a wee bit and maybe thought about trust and what this actually is. So essentially what I want from this project is to prevent people from spiralling and be like clarity and trust. So I went back and thought about the space, where it could be. I am using Photoshop and InDesign. I made a few posters of what this space could look like. And I kind of made a wee storyboard, but realised that the storyboard was too loose, not specific enough. And this kind of made me realise that maybe the idea wasn't strong enough on its own. It's maybe a bit too much like an issue that we could have today. There's already community centres where you can go and talk to your local council about how money's being spent. So I also went back and maybe thought about what sort of practical things we could have in this space. And I was thinking maybe about little AI integrated cards that could kind of give voices to non-human entities to make sure that they're in these conversations in these spaces. But that also kind of feels a bit too dystopian for me in 10 years. So I kind of went back and tried to re-clarify my world again, just kind of get me back grounded. So I thought about maybe healthcare workers and the fact that they're going to start being replaced by automated machines, and that sort of human talk is gone. So with the government focusing on growth and efficiency, that sort of human touch is gone. And I kind of made another little scenario of someone going through, trying to speak to people, but everything's automated, being watched, and walking past this sort of speakeasy and being able to like calm and have honest human interaction. And then with my feedback from this, I kind of realised that I needed to be more specific about the impact of my scenarios, and maybe thinking about, so maybe rephrasing this and thinking about a way for a community to start looking after themselves. I made a page about what's going to stay the same in 10 years and what's going to change in 10 years, kind of help me build a bigger picture. I went back to scenarios and how things are becoming automised, and censorship within the government does not put in trust. So there's going to be less human interaction, rising anxiety and loneliness, and then kind of made some future headlines in 10 years as well to help me envision the sort of world that I'm trying to design for. So I decided at this point that I did want to make props to enable dialogue and connection, meaningful interactions, and kind of enable a bit more silliness and just create more trust and more connection within the public. And how would I sort of break that sort of anxiety and tension with communication? And kind of went back to interactions and what we interact with and what we touch. So even with our hands, like we're constantly touching technology, we're touching plastic and just things that aren't good. And then also with awkward conversations, a lot of people struggle to calm down and feel grounded. A lot of people play with their hands, and I was kind of maybe thinking about, so I sort of knew what my scenario was at this point, and knew what opportunity I wanted. I knew what feeling I wanted to create, but the how I done that still wasn't quite clear yet. So I got some really good feedback from the experts again, and sort of helped me think about what sort of tools I could make to help with this. Sort of hands-on, who's and why, progressing as well. Kind of looked into slow tech and kind of let me know to lean into slow. And the speakeasy, maybe it doesn't have to be so secret, it's just about being human and kind of reconnecting the public back to each other again. And they gave me some really good examples to look at, like a milk cafe, which I did end up looking at. And this is a lovely cafe whose aim is to create a welcoming environment and to promote integration within communities. So firstly, I wanted to focus on what I could do with people's hands through just anxiety and create open dialogue, because I think that's quite a universal thing. So one of the ways that you can reduce stress is walking in a labyrinth, and it's one of the oldest methods to integrate sort of mind and body and to ground people and allow this sort of feeling of calm. But then also what I kept coming back to within my conversations with people that I realised wasn't really in my sketchbook was how human psychology is struggling and will continue to struggle to keep up with the rapid pace of technology. Our bodies are not evolving as fast as technology is, and this is sort of creating a really separated and anxious community. So this sort of ethos is what I wanted to work through. So I decided at this point I wanted to step away from the speakeasy. There was too much secrecy and it wasn't really giving the feeling that I wanted to create. So I was kind of thinking about what other spaces could be. Could it be a cafe, a pharmacy? Decided how I wanted to create tactile tools to increase communication and just less anxiety within people. And then I was thinking about what these could be made of, and I really wanted it to be made of natural materials to kind of let people step away from technology and that sort of anxiety and sort of reframing health. I also thought the material of these handheld tools would create a good contrast with the automated artificial healthcare system that's existing in 10 years. So I kind of made some of these sort of labyrinths out of clay, and after testing them, they were very nice and very calming. So again, reframed what a community civic project is, just to make sure I was going in the right direction within the brief. So what a community civic project is, an initiative led by local residents to improve local life. So then to do this, I narrowed down my project a little bit, because I think I was touching too many things at once. So what I wanted was community space with human connection, open dialogue. Labyrinths were there as a touch point to help people engage and talk calmly. I wanted it to be relatable and safe. So at this point, I knew that I wanted to create a space for open dialogue. But with this space, I kind of wanted to decide on the visual language, so I played around with different names I could do for the space. And what I kind of settled on was blether. And I think that act of like small talking, blabbering is very important, something that we're going to continue to lose with the implementation of technology in everyday life. So I kind of mapped out a scenario of someone being really anxious, trying to talk to the doctors, but there's no sort of human interaction there, and they go to GPs, they get scanned, they told they're fine, but there's nowhere really to talk anymore. So they go into blether, into this space, and then they get given the scanning stone, and they kind of calm down and then reconnect within the community. And then I wrote a project statement. Within the statement, I focused a lot on care and healthcare professionals, but it kind of was a bit conflicting because I didn't want there to be a sort of clinical like diagnosis or any sort of problems. I think it was just the idea of small talk and reconnecting with your community was what I wanted to focus on, and was what I wanted to focus on. So after printing out my poster, I kind of read it out and decided that the focus on like healthcare professionals and NHS was confusing my concept of it, and what I wanted to do was to show that mental health is health, and that sort of lovely aspect of talking is just as important as your physical health, and it's just as important to stay connected to the community. So I decided to rewrite that, and I also decided on extreme users. People just focus on loneliness and sort of connecting the community back together. And with the space as well, I think taking it outside of the space would be just as important. So with the refinement of the statement, I sort of made a little booklet for myself to envision what it is I'm actually doing. So it's small talk that supports well-being, and I've mapped out what the problem is, what the insight is, what the space is, and who facilitates it. Facilitates the space. the tools that are within the space, and then also thought about taking sort of ethos of leather into the public and having little wearable badges to sort of reintroduce and encourage small talk within the communities and make people more connected. So I think once I got to the project, I have made a lovely little ethos and spoke about important things that I think are beginning to be overlooked. I think the world is becoming too focused on efficiency and changing when I think we're kind of losing our human touch of it, and it's important for small talk to happen again, to kind of connect the community and create a sense of togetherness. Looking back on the project, I kind of wish that I spent a bit more time putting part one into my project. I think because we were talking so often as a group and had a lot of pages that we list, I wanted to put more into my sketchbook initially, just to make sure. I think it would have helped me raise my project in the future. I think if I had more time, I kind of wish I'd played more with the scenarios of the space itself and kind of trying to get other people to test it and testing how the public would have actually worked. But yes,